The whisper of the forgotten chapel. It was a cold autumn evening when Daniel first set foot in the small, forgotten town of Alderwood. The air smelled of damp earth and burning wood, and the golden leaves rustled under his boots as he walked. He had come searching for answers, answers buried in the pages of history, in the ruins of a past long forgotten. Daniel was a historian, but more than that, he was a seeker of lost truths. His research had led him to a mystery that few had dared to explore, a chapel, hidden deep within the forest, abandoned for centuries. Legend spoke of a presence that still lingered there, whispers of an angelic voice that called out to those who had lost their way. Some believed it was the voice of a fallen saint. Others thought it was a mere illusion, a trick of the wind and shadows. But Daniel knew there was something more. As he stood at the edge of the forest, staring at the overgrown path leading to the ruins, an uneasy feeling crept over him. The locals had warned him to stay away. Some places are forgotten for a reason, the old woman at the inn had said, her voice trembling. But Daniel was never one to be deterred by fear or superstition. If there was a truth to be uncovered, he would find it. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, pushing past the tangled vines and the eerie silence of the woods. The deeper he ventured, the heavier the air became, thick with the scent of aged stone and something else, something unexplainable. And then, just as the last traces of daylight faded behind the trees, he saw it, the chapel. It stood there, broken yet defiant, its towering archways casting long, skeletal shadows in the moonlight. Time had not been kind to it. The roof had caved in. The stained glass windows were shattered, and ivy crept up its crumbling walls. But despite its ruin, there was an undeniable presence, a whisper in the air that sent chills down Daniel's spine. He took a cautious step closer, and then, in the silence, he heard it, a voice, soft, sorrowful, yet strangely familiar. "Why have you come?" Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The chapel was supposed to be empty. So who, or what, had just spoken? Daniel's pulse quickened as the voice echoed through the hollow remains of the chapel. The sound was neither sharp nor aggressive, but it carried an ancient weight, like a whisper from another time, layered with sorrow and wisdom. He stood frozen, his breath misting in the cold night air. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steadier than he felt. Silence. The air inside the chapel seemed thicker, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. Dust particles floated in the moonlight, pouring through the broken stained glass windows, dancing like tiny spirits caught between worlds. Daniel swallowed hard and stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, an invisible force passed through him, gentle but undeniable, like walking through a curtain of unseen hands. His skin prickled. The pews were shattered, their wood rotting and splintered with age. The altar at the front of the chapel stood partially intact, draped in a decayed cloth that once might have been deep crimson. A sense of reverence still lingered in the space, despite the years of neglect. Then, he saw it, a single candle, flickering at the center of the altar. The sight sent a jolt through him. The chapel was abandoned, had been for centuries. No one should have been there. And yet, the candle burned, its flame unwavering despite the damp air. Daniel stepped closer. "If someone is here, I mean no harm. I just want to understand." Another whisper. This time, it came from behind him. "You seek what was lost." Daniel spun around, his heart hammering. There was no one there. The air felt heavier now, pressing against his chest. He wasn't a man prone to superstition, but something about this place defied logic. He had read the stories, legends of a saint who had once walked this land, a man who had been given divine knowledge but had chosen silence over revelation. Some said he had been punished for keeping the truth hidden. Others believed he had been protecting something sacred, something dangerous. Daniel's fingers trembled as he reached for the candle. The moment he touched it, the flame flared unnaturally bright, and a gust of wind surged through the chapel. The doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. And then, the voice came again, clearer this time. No longer a whisper. "Will you listen?" Daniel's mouth went dry. Listen to what? The chapel seemed to exhale. The air pulsed, and suddenly, the ruined walls around him shimmered, warping as if reality itself was bending. The decay melted away, replaced by towering stained glass windows, their colors vibrant and unbroken. The pews restored themselves, polished and pristine. The scent of burning incense filled the air. He was no longer standing in a ruin. He had stepped into the past. He turned slowly, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. The chapel was alive again, filled with the distant murmur of voices and the soft hum of a choir singing in a language he didn't recognize. The candle in his hand was no longer an old relic but a fresh pillar of wax, its golden flame illuminating the altar. At the center of the altar stood a man dressed in flowing white robes, his face hidden by the shadows of a hood. Daniel could feel the weight of his gaze even without seeing his eyes. "You have come seeking answers," the figure said, his voice echoing like it belonged to both the present and the past. "But are you prepared for the truth?" Daniel swallowed hard, his mind racing. "What truth?" The hooded man lifted a hand, and suddenly, images flooded Daniel's mind, visions of an ancient time, of a disciple writing feverishly by candlelight, his hands trembling as he recorded words he wasn't meant to share. The words, once written, glowed with an otherworldly light before vanishing into the parchment, sealed away by divine command. "The lost teachings," Daniel whispered, the realization settling over him like a weight. "The ones hidden from the world." The hooded man nodded. "Truth has always been a double-edged sword. Some truths liberate, others destroy. What was buried here was not meant to be forgotten, but neither was it meant to be easily found." Daniel felt his knees weaken as another wave of visions overtook him. A secret council, a burning manuscript, a group of men standing in the shadows debating the fate of words that could change the course of history. The lost teachings were more than just wisdom, they held power, enough to shake the very foundations of faith and knowledge. "Why show me this?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because the time has come for the world to remember," the figure said. "But the question remains, will you share what you have learned? Or will you guard it as they once did?" The air in the chapel trembled, the walls flickering between past and present. Daniel could feel the weight of the decision pressing upon him. What lay ahead was more than just a choice, it was a responsibility, one that could either illuminate the world or plunge it into chaos. The candle in his hand flickered again, and Daniel knew the next step he took would change everything. Alara took a deep breath as she stepped onto the cobbled streets of Jerusalem, her heart pounding with both trepidation and excitement. The worn parchment in her hands, the last written words of a forgotten disciple, felt almost alive, as if it pulsed with the weight of untold truths. The ancient alleyways whispered secrets as she walked, each turn leading her deeper into the labyrinth of history. She was no longer just a scholar, she was a seeker of something far greater than knowledge. She was searching for revelation. Her research had led her here, to a small, nearly forgotten temple built upon the ruins of a synagogue where, legend had it, Christ had once spoken in secret to his closest followers. The world knew of his public sermons. But what if there had been more? What if, away from the crowds, he had shared a message so powerful that it had to be concealed until the right moment in time? The parchment hinted at this very truth, but it was fragmented, incomplete. Inside the dimly lit temple, the scent of burning incense clung to the air, and the flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the stone walls. An elderly monk, clad in simple robes, awaited her. His eyes, clouded with age yet sharp with wisdom, studied her intently. "You carry a heavy burden, child," he murmured, his voice like rustling parchment. Alara hesitated before unfolding the fragile document. "I believe this contains a lost teaching of Christ," she said, "but I need help deciphering its meaning." The monk took the parchment, his hands reverent as he traced the faded ink. "This is a remnant of the Logia, a collection of Christ's spoken words. Some preserved, others hidden. Many have sought them, but few understand their significance." "And do you?" she asked. The monk looked up, his gaze piercing. "Do you?" Alara faltered. I think he was speaking about a deeper connection, about the kingdom of heaven not being a place, but a state of being, about how we carry divinity within us, waiting to be awakened." The monk nodded slowly. "You are closer to the truth than most. The kingdom is within and among us. It is realized through love, understanding, and action. But there is more. Would you like to see?" He led her deeper into the temple, down a winding staircase into the catacombs. The air grew cooler, thick with history. At last, they arrived in a circular chamber where a single golden lamp illuminated an altar of smooth stone. Upon it lay an ancient manuscript, carefully preserved. "This," the monk said, his voice barely above a whisper, is the gospel of the hidden word. Alara's breath caught. I've heard whispers of such a text. Many say it's a myth. Many say what is convenient. He replied, but truth is not bound by human limitations. This is a record of teachings spoken only to those ready to hear them. And now, it is time. Her hands trembled as she reached for the manuscript. As her fingers grazed the surface, a strange sensation washed over her. A vision, vivid and undeniable, overtook her senses. She saw Christ standing on a hill at dusk. His disciples gathered in hushed anticipation. The world below shimmered like a dream, the boundary between heaven and earth indistinct. His voice, more profound than thunder yet gentle as a whisper, filled the air. You seek signs, but the signs are within you. You ask for the kingdom, yet you walk in it daily. Unaware, the world deceives you into believing you are separate. But I tell you this, you are the light, the temple, the path itself. Do not seek outside what has always been within. The true teaching is not written, it is lived. The vision faded, and Alara gasped, her knees nearly buckling. She looked at the monk, whose expression was knowing. You have heard the true voice. He said, now you must decide, will you keep seeking, or will you begin living? Tears stung her eyes. All my life, I've searched for knowledge, thinking it would bring me closer to the divine. But now I see, faith is not about knowing, it's about becoming. The monk smiled. Then you have already found what you were looking for. Alara realized in that moment that she had been carrying the answer all along. The lost teachings of Christ were not about hidden doctrines or forbidden scriptures. They were about awakening to a truth that had never been lost, only forgotten. And so, as she stepped out of the temple and back into the bustling world, she carried with her not just knowledge, but a purpose, to live the teachings, to embody the love and wisdom she had sought for so long. For in the end, the divine was not hidden in ancient texts or buried catacombs, it was within her. Within all of them, waiting to be remembered. As the final pages of this mysterious journey unfold, Daniel found himself standing at the threshold of revelation. The ancient monastery had long since faded behind him, but its echoes still reverberated within his soul. The manuscript, now safely tucked inside his satchel, carried not just the weight of forgotten knowledge but the responsibility of its wisdom. The old monk's final words lingered in his mind. You have seen the truth, but truth is not meant to be hoarded. It must be shared, lived, and given freely, otherwise, it will fade into oblivion like the wind through these ancient halls. Daniel knew that understanding was only the first step. Application was the true challenge. The lessons encoded within the lost teachings of Christ were not just theoretical musings but living principles, meant to guide humanity through the darkness of uncertainty and into the light of wisdom. He had spent his life chasing knowledge, but now he understood that knowledge without action was meaningless. As he made his way back to the city, Daniel reflected on what he had learned. The sacred teachings spoke of a life unshackled from material obsessions, a life driven by purpose rather than fleeting ambitions. The world he returned to was no different from the one he had left, a world of greed, division, and fear, but something within him had shifted. He no longer saw the chaos as a reason for despair, but as an opportunity for transformation. Upon returning, Daniel began sharing what he had learned, not in grand speeches or scholarly articles, but in the way he lived. He simplified his existence, choosing depth over distraction. He mended relationships that had frayed under the weight of ego and ambition. He listened more, judged less, and, as he did, something incredible happened. The people around him changed as well. At first, it was subtle. His friends and colleagues noticed his newfound calm, his unshakable sense of purpose. They sought his counsel, not because he had all the answers, but because he asked the right questions. He no longer debated for the sake of proving a point, he conversed to understand. The lost teachings had not given him rigid doctrines to impose upon others, but had instead opened his heart to the divine whisper that had always been there, guiding, nudging, waiting to be heard. One evening, as Daniel sat beneath the same olive tree where his journey had begun, a young woman approached him. She had heard whispers of his story, of the ancient texts, of the wisdom he now carried. Tell me, she asked, what was the greatest lesson you learned? Daniel smiled, the weight of many lifetimes of searching reflected in his eyes. That truth is not a treasure to be hidden, he said. It is a flame meant to be shared, a light that grows stronger the more it is given away. The young woman nodded, contemplating his words. And what will you do with what you have found? Daniel looked up at the sky, the stars winking in silent approval. I will live it, and in living it, I will teach it, not with sermons or commandments, but with the quiet power of example. Because wisdom is not in the words we speak, it is in the love we embody. And so, Daniel's journey did not end with the discovery of lost teachings. It began there. For what good is knowledge if it does not transform the world around us? What value do ancient secrets hold if they do not lead us to become more compassionate, more just, more fully alive? As he walked away, the wind carried the faintest whisper through the trees, as if the echoes of Christ's forgotten words still lingered in the air, waiting to be heard by those willing to listen. And so, dear listener, the question now turns to you. If you were to uncover a truth so profound, so life-changing, what would you do with it? Would you guard it for yourself? Or would you let it illuminate the world? The choice, as always, is yours. If you found this story thought-provoking, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another journey into the unknown. Let us continue to seek, to question, and to discover together.